Welcome, everybody, to the third edition of Cut to the Jase, brought to you by basketball.com.au. And of course, I'm joined by the main man, 15-year NBL vet, 424 games in the NBL, and of course, a former Boomers guard, Jason Cadee. Jase, how you feeling, mate? We've had plenty happening in the last week, and we've got even bigger things coming. But how you feeling after the past week?
Yeah, no, it's been good. Obviously, a lot of good things for basketball. Our Sapphires group obviously had a win overseas. NBL games were once again storylines galore, and I think this week it's once again it's weird to say every week it's a bigger week, but obviously with what we'll talk about a bit tonight, these NBA games being in Australia against both Melbourne teams, I think is an exciting time for basketball.
Ready for a big episode, mate. I feel refreshed. I feel fresh. It's fresh off the barbers this afternoon. You know that first where you go to a new barber for the first time and you're always really nervous? I was that point this afternoon, but it ended up going all right, I think, thanks to Dark and Stormy and Bendigo. Been at the same barber for 9 years, so it was really nerve-wracking, mate. But
No, it doesn't matter how much you change. It's nerve-wracking. That whole in the going to a new barber, it's just one of those feelings like, oh, God, how is this going to work
the
out?
worst thing for me is they've got to dance around a bird's nest at the back of my head as well. So,
Yeah.
But we do need to mention the fact that Montrezl Harrell is going to appear on Cut to the Jase. It was going to be this week, but he's just got some things to sort out in the US first. So that is still to come. We'll still have him on Cut to the Jase. He's been promoting it as well as us, Jase. So it should be pretty interesting once we get Trez on the show.
Yeah, no doubt. I was actually pretty much out of reception for a bit of the weekend. So I got on my phone was blowing up at one stage and people kept talking about Trez. I was like, what are you guys all talking about? And then I had a look. But no, look, I've obviously got a pretty good relationship with Trez, having played with him last year. Told him if he wants to jump on and he wants to kind of talk about what he's got on his mind, always happy to have him. He's obviously flown back to America now. He's back with the family. And there's a whole heap going in the background for him. So looking forward to him jumping on when suits him. And hopefully we can kind of get a bit of his story to what's transpired because we've obviously seen it from afar.
It's funny you say your phone was going off, and we spoke about it during the week. My phone hadn't been going off until yesterday, and then it well and truly went off. So we've got plenty of people interested in that chat. So we're really looking forward to having that chat with Trez and seeing his point of view on the different things that have transpired in the last couple of months. But regardless of that, we've got a really big episode coming up tonight. We'll recap round 2 of the NBL. We'll talk about our tips. Now, I don't know whether I should anymore because mine are just piss poor at the moment. I'm only on a very small amount of points. I don't think you're even doing too well either, but it looks good because it's next to my talent.
I'm beating you, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Exactly. But our guest tonight, we're going to be lucky enough to join by Southeast Melbourne Phoenix star, Olympic bronze medalist Nathan Sobey, one of your good mates, Jase, ahead of the NBL versus NBA games this weekend. Of course, such a massive week for basketball in Australia and the NBL, a landmark moment with the New Orleans Pelicans coming here, taking on Melbourne United on Friday night, and then Southeast Melbourne Phoenix on Sunday. Jase, if I remember correctly, you've played in a NBL versus NBA game over in the States. Is that right?
Yeah, the first ever one, actually. We were the first cab off the rank. We played Utah in Utah, and it was a hell of an experience. Obviously, the jet lag and all that's one part of it, but just being in that environment, and it was like, I guess Utah loved their basketball, and it was something that we probably see preseason games and there's little crowds, but I remember there being about 15, 16,000 people there. We got off to a terrible slow start, and then from about quarter time onwards, we actually competed very well. Like, I think other than losing the first quarter, we were around the mark for the rest, but it was a different experience. It was something that I'll remember forever. It did hurt us because we flew straight back into a home or away game about 2 days after arriving, and we were awful. But the whole experience of being over there and playing an NBA team on an NBA floor is something that I'll never forget. And now I think having it over here is just a whole nother thing. Obviously, having the home crowd and playing in Melbourne, it's just going to be a fun atmosphere. And having an NBA team on our floors is going to be cool to see.
Building on that, we've seen Australian basketball go forward in leaps and bounds in recent years, and of course the NBL as well. What do you think this means for Australian basketball and for the NBL to have a team come over here and play? And not only that, like I know the New Orleans Pelicans haven't been very successful, but apart from the injured DeJounte Murray, they brought their full side out here. Zion Williamson is here, Jordan Poole's here. It should be a really interesting event.
Well, I think the thing for NBA teams is they use these games like as a real lead up. Like they don't have a lot of time. They don't have an 8-week preseason. They have a training camp. They go and play games, and then they're on the floor and off and running. So obviously, we've seen the reports of Zion transformed himself. He looks fit and healthy. And just some of those caliber guys, just seeing them in person is something that you can't really understand through a TV till you see them on the floor. So I personally am going to be down at game Friday night, and I'm really looking forward just to seeing our NBL teams on the floor against them. I just think it's hopefully a sign of the support that basketball has in Australia, not only for our own, but for the NBA. And hopefully this is just the start of something that we see more and more of.
Yeah, massive landmark moment. Like I said, going to be really interesting to watch across the weekend. But that's enough of our intro. Let's go on to our interview with Southeast Melbourne Phoenix star Nathan Sobey. Yeah, now our guest for tonight, of course, we've already introduced him, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix star, and of course was part of Australian basketball history with the Boomers winning a bronze medal at the 2020 or 2021 Tokyo Olympic Games. Nathan Sobey. Sobes, welcome to Cut to the Jase, mate.
Nah, thanks for having me.
Now, before we get on to this week's games and the NBL season, you two are obviously really good mates. Jase, have you forgiven Sobes for ending your career last season yet at all? Or?
No, I'm still not over it.
Well, I didn't really have much part in it. I was hopeless that game, so you can blame a few of the others. I didn't really do a whole lot, so I was trying to help him in a way.
Well, you had a 20-point advantage at halftime, right?
Yeah, I think we did more damage to ourselves. But no, it was somewhat fitting that I was on the court with him when it all ended. So I got on with it pretty quick. My life moved on after that game, that's for sure.
Now, Sobes, obviously a massive week ahead for you guys, part of a landmark moment for Australian basketball and for the NBL, playing the New Orleans Pelicans on Sunday, Melbourne United playing on Friday night. What are the feelings and everything heading into this and being part of such a massive moment for Australian basketball?
Yeah, it's a little bit mixed for us at the moment, actually. Obviously, coming off a loss in the actual NBL season to a good United squad, we've got a lot of room for improvement. So hitting the deck, getting kind of reviewing that the first few days out of that, and then kind of slowly turning the page to what's to come. And I think it's really amped up the last couple of days in terms of the promotion side of it, them like the New Orleans arriving, and us starting to actually focus on what they're about and how we're going to approach the game. But super exciting for us as a club, as an NBL, as a basketball in general in Australia. It's awesome to have that sort of talent come out and first of all be in Australia, but also get to compete against them. It's going to be good fun.
We were just talking before about when I first went over when we played Utah, and you actually played Utah as well with Adelaide. And did you play any? Was it just Utah, or was there another team you played as well?
No, we just played that one game against Utah in Utah.
You actually played pretty well from memory. I think you told me about it a few times. But what was your memories of going over there and kind of playing over there? And then the counter that, what do you think it'll be like playing an NBA team in Australia, in Melbourne?
Yeah, I mean, going over there, obviously would have been over 10 years younger nearly now when I went over. So looked a little bit different in terms of I just had a stint with them in the summer league as well. So just I knew a few people around there. It was good to get over there and play in that sort of environment against people that I'd worked with before. But yeah, I think as a group, we did pretty well when we went over there. It was super exciting for us. We had a young squad, really energized to get over there and compete. But I think it takes it to another level when we can bring that talent to Australia and showcase that in front of our basketball fans and kind of get that experience for everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's super exciting. I mean, especially for you guys to be one of the games. But then the next part is, do you guys speak during the week? Like, I know me and you have conversations every week, sometimes too much, but you start the shift where you change the basketball because you're going to play the different ball. The court being bigger. Do you start talking about those things now you're a few days out from actually playing? Like, do you go over those things? Do you go over scout? Like, how do you prepare for that stuff? Because it's different, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the balls rolled out yesterday at training and them things were zinging around everywhere. So they're a little bit different, a little bit to get used to. But yeah, we definitely turn the page with that, get used to the ball, start talking about what it's going to look like. Obviously, the game's going to be a lot longer, a lot more timeouts, a lot more, obviously, minutes in the game as well. So trying to approach it in a different way than we're used to is going to be a challenge, but also something that I think we're excited about in terms of testing us and kind of pushing ourselves out sort of our normal barrier of the NBL game. But yeah, we'll start to look at scout over the next few days as we get closer and closer and approach the actual game time.
Do you think with something like this, obviously in previous experiences when we've played an NBA team or whatever, it's truly been a preseason game for us as an NBL, where now you're 2 games into the season, you're playing them in this kind of patch between regular season games. Do you think for you guys as a side, even though it's a few different rules and a different team, you treat it like a regular season game because it's still like you can still take a lot from it going forward with whoever your next game is after this?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think you should, but I don't think Josh is going to let us take it any other way.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get with him. Each and every game is balls to the wall. We're trying to get better. We're trying to work on what we're trying to do. And it'll be no different for that. I think there might be a few changes here and there with testing out different rotations and trying different things, but also at the same time, we're going to establish how we play and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to guard.
So last time you played, how many points do you have?
I think I had 25.
So are we trying to beat that again this weekend or what?
I'm not too worried about it. I was a little bit different back then. I was still trying to establish what I was trying to do, and right now it's just all about how we can impact winning and what it's going to look like for us to keep getting better. Especially like you said, we're 2 games in, and we're really trying to improve what we're doing. Especially coming after that loss against United, I don't think we played well at all. So it'd be good to get a response.
No, fair enough. So I'll jot you down for 25 plus on Sunday.
This is for both of you, but we'll start with Sobes. It might seem like an obvious question, but what's the biggest difference between your regular competition, apart from obviously the talent levels and they're the best players in the world and everything? What's the biggest difference in going up against these NBA sort of caliber players?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a few different rule changes, so there's going to be a lot more, I guess, room inside the keyway and all that, a lot more space, which really frees it up for those athletes, and that's where they come in. I mean, they got some extraordinary athletes throughout the whole court, so it's gonna open up all those kind of avenues for people to make plays and show the fans what they really came for. So that's probably the biggest difference. I think we've got great skill here in the NBL and it continues to get better. And we've got a bunch of great players as well. And the whole league continues to grow. So I don't think there's a whole ton of difference in that sort of stuff. But when it comes to, I guess, 1 through 12 athletic players, I think that's where it kind of makes a big difference.
And don't lie. How did you guys go guarding these players?
Yeah, I mean, we did pretty solid for 3 quarters, or just under when I played at Adelaide. But you start to see the wear down, the grind. They have their regular substitutions at certain times of the game, and then they know when they come back in and it's time to turn it on at certain points in the game. So we really struggled in that 4th quarter to kind of find our, I guess, gears to get going for another 8 minutes than regular time. But I think that made a big difference.
Jase?
No, I think he summed it up. I remember like our game, it felt like the floor's actually bigger in the NBA and it felt smaller than an NBL court because they just have so much length. And at that time too, when we're playing Utah, Donovan Mitchell was a rookie. Rudy Gobert's 7'3". They had Rodney Hood and Ingles and all these guys that were 6'7", 6'8", and just long, and they just made the floor seem so much smaller than what it was. And then for them, if all else failed, they had Rudy Gobert standing back there. And at the other end was the same thing. We do such a good job defensively, and they just kind of throw it up and Rudy go get it. So that was definitely a difference maker, I thought, in the whole contest, was just that period of length and athleticism, not necessarily shot making or IQ, any of that. I thought that just length and athleticism was what changed.
What's the feelings going up against this team, Sobes, considering apart from, I mentioned it to Jase before, apart from DeJounte Murray, who's injured, they brought their full squad over, the likes of Zion Williamson, Jordan Poole, those guys. It's going to be a really tough contest, and who's got those matchups?
Yeah, well, we haven't really talked matchups as of yet. That'll get closer and closer over the next couple of days. We've got, I think, 3 more days to fine-tune that sort of stuff and really get ready for personnel and all how it's going to look. But, yeah, I mean, like we touched on earlier, to have those guys out here and showcase their talent is special for the NBL and for people to... We have such a huge following from Australians to the NBA. So for them to actually get to experience that firsthand and see it with their full squad and get to see how it really operates, it's awesome.
I think the one thing too is you probably, even though you guys are competitors, you probably don't want to win it, considering the only NBL team to beat an NBA team is the Adelaide 36ers a couple of years ago. We all know how that turned out.
Yeah, no, that game was awesome to see, but yeah, obviously it didn't go the way they wanted to go the rest of the season.
Now, Sobes, a start to the season, a really good performance first up against Cairns, and then not so much last week against United. What are your thoughts on how the start of the season's panned out so far?
Yeah, I think obviously we came out with a lot of energy in the first game. Really keen to play first game of the season at home crowd, really juiced up, ready to go, and we got them from the jump and really just kept going and building on that throughout the game. So we're able to just kind of keep building from that. But then we found moments in the second game against United. They tightened things up, got a little bit more physical. We couldn't find ways to score as easy as what we wanted to. And then they went down and they were shooting the ball extraordinarily well. So being able to kind of take out of the first 2 games, we were really solid the first game. Second game, we were below par for sure. So, which is good signs in a way as well, as we didn't play the way we wanted to. And I think we went up 4 towards the end of the third quarter, right on the fourth quarter. And then they just really made a push and blew it out and made it look uglier than what it was. But good signs, a lot of room for improvement. But we'll continue to keep getting better over these next couple of weeks before our next NBL game.
You said it before, and you've kind of got obviously to the later stages in your career, still some time to go, but you're at the back end of it all. And there was a time and a period where leadership wasn't anything you were looking for. It wasn't something you really wanted, because you thought you were doing your best basketball when you could really worry about just playing basketball. Over the last few years, especially probably since you've got to Southeast, from the outside looking in, and this is separate to any discussions we have, but from the outside looking in, it looks like you're really taking on the leadership. You see yourself talking in huddles. You see yourself after games being the one that speaks. How has that transition been for you, given that it was a period in time where it probably wasn't something you were looking for, but it's kind of now started to take course over the last few years?
Yeah, I think, like you touched on, I had guys like yourself and stuff around when I was going through a period that I probably could focus on just playing. I had leadership around me in terms of I wasn't at that point, and I also had guys around me that had been around that and really good at that sort of role. So that was part of it as well, and obviously learning from you guys and people in Brisbane, Dre, guys like that over the journey. CJ, just kind of taking little bits and pieces as much as I could. And then obviously moving to Southeast, we had kind of a new squad together in terms of a group. And it was really just understanding how I was going to make an impact as quick as I can on a new group. And I think that was a big thing for me in what the group needed as well. So in terms of just trying to grow that, working with our high performance team on that sort of stuff pretty frequently to see areas to improve in it, but also understanding that basketball is the main thing as well. You lead by example, so that you've got to find ways to continue to do what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, being able to learn from guys over the journey and kind of just little bits and pieces and push it through to a group and understand that I have been around for a while now and understanding that people are gonna like want to listen and stuff has been a big thing. Especially we've got a great group at Southeast that really want to get better. Led from top to bottom. Josh does a great job and kind of makes it a lot easier for us to kind of do those roles.
I have to ask, so as we mentioned before, part of Australian basketball history with the Olympic team in 2021, but I did the story with you. You actually had that medal stolen and you got it back. Tell us about that process. How did that all happen?
Yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind. I think we had Fort Knox around both of our houses there for a while. Cameras everywhere. You couldn't move outside our joint, but yeah, it was just one of those things that we had a game one night and yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind as well because I actually got injured and that was my last game of the season that year. And then it ended up being the same night that happened. So it was a little bit of a build up and yeah, it was pretty crazy, but end of the day, no one can really do anything with it apart from me and the guys that really that did it. So it meant nothing to whoever stole it and they returned it and yeah, there's not much. A lawyer called me and told me he had it and I was just like, all right, who gave it to you? And he's like, I really can't tell you. He's like, I'm a criminal defense lawyer and I'm like, oh, there you go, the end of the story. Police can't even help. So it was pretty wild, but yeah, I'm just happy I've got it back now and it's not going to leave my side anymore.
The world's worst criminal who steals something and then gives it back.
Yeah, no, it wasn't very smart of him.
Well, when that was funny because we live next door, so me and Sobey used to drive the games together. Then our partners and the kids would all come later on, so they would leave basically. They used to say they get there before the game, but they'd get there probably halfway through the first quarter by the time they actually wrangled the kids up and left.
But they'd be lucky to be there by halftime.
Because Sobes got hurt that night, we got out of there pretty quick after the game, so they arrived just before us. And when Sobes got the call, I remember him being like, no, you're lying. And no, like, seriously. Because the kids used to just run into our house or run into one of the houses. And so the whole house was open. And that's what I said to him after it. I was like, of all the things they could have stole, some of this stuff in his actually could be used. They stole the medal.
There was tons of stuff there that I was just like, why is this not here? And I was like, I mean, why is this still here? And you just like, obviously they had one goal and it was to go in and get that stuff and maybe bump a few things on the way. But yeah, it was pretty funny that there was a ton of stuff as they were walking past that they could have easily just taken.
It's in a secure place now, though, I bet.
Yeah, no, it's in a safe that you can never get into.
Well, mate, it's really exciting week for Australian basketball in the NBL, like I said, and obviously for yourself getting a chance to play in that game against New Orleans Pelicans. But obviously really excited to have you on the show and on Cut to the Jase episode 3 and all the best for this weekend and for the rest of the season.
Nah, thanks heaps. Appreciate the talk and good luck with the rest of it.
Thanks to Nathan Sobey ahead of this week's NBL versus NBA games for joining us on Cut to the Jase. Now, Jase, I mentioned earlier that he knocked you guys out of the playoffs last year and ended your career, but I forgot that he actually beat you in the NBL One North Championship Series a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah, he did. He did. I just have you know that many times before that, I actually beat them in the NBL One North especially. But no, that group they had was, you could put that line up in any NBL One game, and I don't think they lose. Sobes, the Galloway boys, Dang, Hodgie, Ralphie, who's played NBL One for years, Cam Golf, mate, they were stacked. I still, deep down, I blame Tanner Krebs for not coming back. If Tanner showed up, we won game 1 by 20. Game 2 was in the balance. They just had too much firepower.
You know who I blame, and I hope he hears this. Your good mate, Peach, for his ejection in the last game.
Oh.
And the game was already done, but might be the worst ejection of all time.
Well, because you know what happened, right? Like the game was well and truly done. We were right pushing uphill from about the second quarter onwards. We had to win it in 2. We kind of knew that. And then we rolled out game 3 and they just had this energy of too much depth. And then with not long to go, right before I got ejected, I went over to Peach and said, bro, just don't get ejected. Like, listen, the refs had been pretty average over the course of the 3 games with just somehow how they ref some things. And I said, Peach, it's not worth it. Don't get ejected. And he looked at me, and me and him are very close. He was like, yeah, I got you. And then the next second he gets ejected. So me in the moment was like, bro, what the? Anyway, what happened was the ref ran into him.
Yeah.
By no feet at all. Peach didn't even do anything wrong. Peach was actually not on the court, and the ref turned around and ejected him. And then apologized the next year, game 1, and Peach said, awesome, mate, but you embarrassed me in front of my whole family and network of people. I'll never forgive you for it.
Yeah,
and fair enough.
Still remember it to this day. But anyway, we'll move on to our coverage of the NBL. A really interesting round 2, and we'll obviously preview round 3 as well. But as we started last week, let's get into JC5's points from the weekend of the NBL. Jason, your first point, you're going to go to a team that neither of us tipped for either game in round 2.
And I've been told do not tip them again this week. From my friend who was one of their assistant coaches. Leave them alone. But no, I thought Cairns were the team of the round. Got beat up in that first game against Sobes' team in Southeast. Had some work to do. Had an import flying in a couple of days before the game, which is always, how does that work? And to take care of business at home against a team in Brisbane who played very well on the road the week before and got a win in New Zealand. To go and take care of business at home, but then to go to Sydney on Sunday and beat a fresh Sydney Kings. First game of the year for them at home in the NBL season. It's a bad loss for Sydney, but it's a great win for Cairns, and it just shows if you can find wins while you're figuring it out, it's massive. And so they have gone and got 2 wins this round while they are still very much trying to figure out who they are, what it looks like, and get all their pieces together. So that's a big weekend for Cairns, and that's why they're top of the list.
How much do you think the win on Friday night played into taking some confidence into Sunday? Because we mentioned it off air. I don't think they played too well against the Bullets on Friday night. We're lucky to get away with that one. And then they looked a completely different team on the Sunday.
I think it's massive. And that's my point around when you're trying to figure out who you are in this first part of the season. It's easy to lose some of those close games because who's taking the last shots? Where do you go to? What are we running late? How do we get stops as a cohesive unit when we're tired? So for them to go down to Sydney more than not, the game 1 plays a part in that because they won a close game at home. Air of confidence. You're not as sore on the plane the next day because you got to win. Everyone feels a bit better. But then to go down to Sydney and kind of have that fatigue set in, especially for the guy Andrew Andrews who landed during the week, like to just go through that motion and feel it out as a group and win that way, figuring it out. Now, listen, every team's figuring it out. But a game like that, when Sydney's ranked to be in the top 2 by people's opinions, I think that's a great win.
Yeah, Jack McVeigh worth every cent, Jase?
So far. I mean, the thing that you know with Jack is he's not short on confidence. He lifts people around him because of his energy. Some viewers have been a bit different, but Jack is notorious at always being the up and about and positive guy. And I think in a place like Cairns, that will be infectious with a group that has a bit of that. And the one thing Cairns do is they have a lot of shooters. So if they find their rhythm and knock down shots, well, you know they're going to shoot a lot of threes, and they've got some guys who can really fill it up from there too.
Just quickly, before we move on to the next point, I did want to ask you about the Sydney Kings. Defense was a strong point from last year, even despite the struggles they did have. Again, giving up 77 points, not too bad. But last year they had struggles on the offensive end, and it seemed like they were there again. Only 74 points against the Cairns Taipans. I know it's only one game. Is that a danger sign for the Kings?
I mean, it's not a great start, just given that it was a home game. They were the fresher side. You would you would like to think that they're the team that gets a win there. But ultimately, Cairns did enough to keep him at 74. I think that shows City's still got a long way to go. I think KD said in an interview, maybe after the Panathinaikos game, he's barely trained since he's been there. So I think there's a little bit of the feeling out process with someone like him who is going to be their main go-to guy throughout the year. And sometimes at the end of the day, basketball is a make or miss game. And so if you miss too many, you end up losing. And I think for them, that's probably a bit of the result of Cairns ended up making more than they did, especially when it mattered.
Yeah, we'll see if the Kings can bounce back. Now for point 2, you're going to a familiar name in the NBL, a 5-time MVP who played his first actual NBL game in an Adelaide 36ers jersey.
I've been talking about Bryce Hamilton, and Bryce Cotton quickly came back to say, I'm the big Bryce around town. And here I am in Adelaide. And having been part of that franchise for the last couple of years, especially the last few years, they just latch on to people like Bryce. And Bryce is going to have that place in an absolute just mess because of the way he plays. And it's one of those places when you shoot shots, you feel the crowd almost gasp with you. And he's one of those people that when they do that, it's like he makes every single time because he wants the people to feed off it. And just to see him go out in game 1, go in, first game. And as I said, Sydney got a bit of it. Those first games, sometimes it can be a bit of a weird one. You haven't played a proper NBL game. You spent preseason, everyone getting to go. And for him to basically say, I'm Bryce Cotton. I used to play for Perth and now I play for Adelaide. And this is the reason Jason tipped me to be the MVP of the league because I am that good. I am that good. And the other part for me was just knowing that group and knowing Mike Wells. Mike's going to put everything in place to have Bryce operate. And that's why he has guys like Isaac and Zyla and Cheatham. He's got DJ spacing. But those two bigs and specifically, they're great rim presence and they're great out of pick and roll and they're great off handoffs. So for Bryce, he's going to put bigs in a place of they never want to feel like they're big scored. And Bryce is the ultimate at doing that, especially with those two guys. I think it's a big start for him.
They needed every part of it too because that Bullets team wasn't going away despite some struggles and Sam McDaniel and Javon Freeman-Liberty missing with ankle injuries as well. But just a little thing for Brisbane, maybe the drops pick and roll defense might not work against someone like Bryce, maybe not 4 quarters of it anyway.
No, it's not what we normally used to try and do to Bryce. If it was drops, it was the highest drops you've ever seen. But I didn't see the full game. I've seen bits and pieces. Obviously went back and tried to watch a little bit as well. But he's not someone you can allow to feel comfortable because he's also a guy that just makes tough shots. So you've got to give him different looks. But drops for a full game is probably not the recipe.
Yeah, one thing I will touch on quickly, Jase, before we move on, it seems like I'm spending a little bit of time on these points. Lamar Patterson got his first NBL minutes back for the Brisbane Bullets. Awesome to see him back. He's in great shape. But one thing I wanted to ask you, and I thought of this today, you were there his first season in the NBL, where if he was there for a full season, he might have won MVP. He was that good. Can you take us just quickly inside how good he was when he first came to the NBL?
Lamar Patterson is one of the best basketballers I've ever played with. That's how good he is. Like his ability to score is obviously incredible, especially through those years. But his ability to pass and find people, just be able to create things for everyone. Like he used to be able to just create things out of nothing and it would make other people's lives easy. He was, and then the other part to it is LP is one of the greatest people I've ever been around, especially as an import, to come out here and really embrace the culture. And sometimes I say, like, imports out here, Americans, you can almost be an average basketball player, but a great person, and you'll last a long time, then be a great basketball player, an average person. And so for LP, he was both. He was a great basketball player. COVID really messed with him. He was very much a routine guy. It helped him stay in shape, routine. And I think having him back playing for Brisbane, wearing that 13, it's a person that Brisbane fan base really got behind. Who knows how long? I don't know what the injury status is of Freeman Liberty, but LP's a guy that the more reps he gets, the better he gets. So if he plays again this weekend, I think you'll actually see him be a bit better again. But he's one of my good friends, and he's one of my good friends not just because he was a great basketball player, because he was an even better bloke.
Yeah, not sure he's got that rooftop spot at the Emporium at South Bank anymore, LP, but that was a hell of a spot. But I don't think he'll be playing this week, because the word is that Javon Freeman Liberty and Sam McDaniel will be back for the Brisbane Bullets, which is two big ins. But you never know, we might see him get the citizenship, and then he's a valuable commodity in the NBL as a local. But for our third point, Jase, we didn't really touch on him too much, but you're going to head across the ditch to the Breakers.
Yeah, New Zealand. What is going on? I mean, listen, new team, new makeup, but 2 home losses to start the year is just not what you're after. They're going back to their old ways of I guess that real New Zealand Breakers basketball, which is what my time in the league. New Zealand was one of the most dominant figures across it with Perth for many of my 15 years. You knew who they were, you knew how they played, and they really had that New Zealand core to their team, and they're trying to bring that back. But just to lose 2 home games, I think is not the start they'd be after. To start the year 0-3, now I think there's plenty of wins in that group, but to start the year 0-3, especially when you've had 2 home games, it's just not the ideal start, and they're going to have to figure out something quick to pick up some wins, because as I said earlier, getting wins when you're trying to figure it out just helps lessen the blow later on in the year, because at some point, every team is going to have themselves figured out as a group and where they're going. And if you're trying to chase wins, I think this league's too tight to chase wins later in the year.
Absolutely. And I think the thing to watch too, I think despite ensuring his job before the start of the season, Petori Koppinen might be in the hot seat if this continues, especially with so many New Zealand coaches, the likes of Paul Henare and that on the scene, who wanted to come back to the NBL. Judd Flavel's an assistant who hasn't really got to go at this level yet. You never know what might happen there. But your fourth point, we're going to head to a guy that Damon Lowry compared to Wilt Chamberlain, Jase. I'm not sure that's the comparison, but JaVale McGee had a massive first weekend with the Illawarra Hawks. Despite the loss, 32 points and 13 rebounds. He was huge.
I mean, Damon's already got his Wollongong bias on, and he's known to say some outlandish things. But yeah, 32, 13, 2, 2, and 3. In terms of NBL appearances, that's one of the more incredible stat lines you see. I was part of a Josh Childress 35, 18, 5 and 5 or something like that. And that was one of the most incredible games I've seen of someone. But JaVale to come into the league, obviously off a bit of a gap. He was sick with pneumonia. To now come out, have those games in Singapore, arrive in Wollongong and deliver that kind of performance. I think that's an exciting thing for Wollongong. The next part for them is they're going to have to really figure it out, but that's a whole nother story. But for them, JaVale McGee, that kind of in performance, he just puts himself up in that MVP top 5 after one game, and we'll see what he's like this week, which is exciting.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat real quick. I was of the opinion Ja'Cory McLaughlin was not the import they need, and they don't have the firepower with him to be a championship contender. Didn't have a great start. He only had that one game, which was the second game of Blitz when they came back from Perth. What are your thoughts on that spot if Illawarra have the firepower needed to contend once again?
I haven't seen enough of him, but early signs for me are that no, because last year they had Trey Kell. Now, if you think about Trey Kell's back end with us in Adelaide, back end of that half of the season into what he did last year at Wollongong, he's a massive reason why they won a championship last year. He helped unlock Tyler Harvey. He was a bigger body. He could defend. He could take some pressure off Tyler creatively, and then allowed Tyler to pick his spots, where now, if you look at that group, Tyler has to be gun-ho, or I feel like they don't have the firepower to stay in games or to win games. Now, Tatum has been more incredible in his time here, and he'll be able to unlock something. But with the league the way it is this year, it's got stronger. And you not replacing Trey Kell, I just don't know if that works right now. They've only played one game It's a long season, but early signs would say they might need something more to replace a Trey Kell. Not having Davo Hickey does not help either.
Yeah, absolutely. One to watch in the coming rounds for sure. Now, for our last point, you're going to go to the Jack Jumpers. And again, that championship qualities that they've possessed, even before they won the title a couple of years ago, they still look like they've got it with that win in Illawarra.
And that was more my thing. To go Perth to Illawarra, you lose game 1 at home, you go to Perth, you get a win, and you roll that into Illawarra opening night, banner from the ceiling, all the emotions
as well.
And that was my next point. You lose an import during the week. And then Drim, who hasn't even played much in the first few games, had been out with a broken nose, probably lost his spot in the rotation a little bit. Scott Ross says, well, I know you, I can rely on you, you step in and start. And he ends up playing 30-something. I think he played 30 minutes almost. For me, that's why you have guys like Drim around. That's why they're worth their weight in gold. Older guy, knows how to play, knows the league. And then you go and beat Illawarra in Illawarra, which was a hard place for people to win last year. I just think they deserve some props, and it puts them in a great spot where they're now 2-1 to start the year.
Absolutely. Anthony Drimick's been huge, and it's been such a perfect fit for that Jack Jumpers culture since he's made the move there from Adelaide. Now, we are going to move on to our tips. Now, anyone who might be looking for ask for advice, now yours is a little bit better, Jase, but they might not want to follow our tips too closely. So after the first 2 rounds, you're on 7 and I'm on 3. And in our rundown, I put some colorful language next to that because I have been absolutely terrible to start. It hasn't been a great start for either of us with the tips, Jase.
First of all, I need to confirm. What am I 7 for? Am I 7 for 10? How many games have we got wrong? That's what I also need to know because...
Let me go through it now, actually. I'm going to go through it while we're on the show. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games last week. And then we had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're 7. 7 of 10 is pretty good.
See, I'm pretty happy with that, considering one of the ones I got done on was Tassie beating Perth in a nail biter.
Yep.
The other one I got done on was Cairns come out after losing by 30 or 4, whatever it was, win a nail biter against Brisbane. And then Sydney lose to Cairns in another nail biter. So the 3 ones I've kind of got done on aren't massive surprises, so to say, but they were there to be won and maybe a little bit of an upset.
Yeah, you could say there's been some backlash from tipping the Bullets against Cairns Taipans on that Friday night. But yeah, I've been waiting to use that, Jase, but be interested to see if they can bounce back. But I'm only on 3 out of 10, which is just piss poor.
You've got some work to do.
I do. I'll be able to tip some upsets or something to try and make up some ground. And we've got to figure out what we're going to put on the line at the end of this season as well. But we're going to go through our tips this week, and we're going to run through them really quickly. And we're going to include the New Orleans Pelicans, Melbourne United, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix games as well. So Thursday, we got Cairns hosting the Adelaide 36ers. It's a good game.
It is a good game, but Adelaide, I just think they've got something going in Adelaide. I know their new import arrives sometime this week.
It's good here today, I'm pretty sure.
So we'll see if he suits up. Depends. That's a tough order to fly in and suit up, but they do need an extra big. Cairns aren't an overly big team, though, so I don't think that really impacts them. And I just think the Bryce Cotton factor, and Bryce Cotton in Cairns, I don't know if he likes Gilligan's, but he likes playing in Cairns.
I think everyone likes Gilligan's, mate, but I'm going to go Cairns. I think they'll continue their form from last week. So I've got to make up some ground. So I'll go Cairns. Perth hosting Illawarra. That's another good matchup on Thursday night.
Another great matchup. And I actually think Illawarra have been pretty good in Perth in recent years, but I am going with Perth. And actually, sorry, in my top 5 points of the week, I'm just going back and making a 6 point. Jaron Riley. Now, people wanted to bag out, you're putting your son as a DP, not knowing that Jaron actually had a really good college career. He then comes on with 6 minutes to go on the road, and he's plus 21 in 6.5 minutes. I mean,
Impressive. Really impressive.
I mean, for just Johnny to have the nuts, I'm not surprised by it because as a basketball player, those of you JR had nuts in all situations and he was cheeky about it. But for him to put his son on and take off their star recruit, to put his son on and say, we need something here. I need someone to just be a steady point guard for us. And Jaron to do that. Mate, that's cool. It's a cool story. When he made that 3 ball to put him up 6, I had goosebumps because I was so pumped for him and the family because I've known him since I was a little kid. But that should have been point 1 to 6, somewhere in there because that was massive. But I have Perth to win against Illawarra in Perth.
Yeah, I got Perth too. And for those people who think John really cares about their opinion of having his son in the team, he does not, Jase. So a good first up performance there from Jaron Riley. Friday, Melbourne United hosting the New Orleans Pelicans. Jase, now I'm going to go before you, and I'm going to actually tip this to be a Melbourne United upset.
Well, I was going to do that till you said it counts the scores. I was just going to be just some home cooking. You know, I want to see United win, but there's a tally going on in the background, so I have to pick New Orleans because the odds and the percentages say that's how it normally works out. But I hope I am wrong. I will be sitting there watching, and I hope United win, but I'm picking New Orleans for my own points tally against you.
There we go. Being safe. Saturday, we've got Sydney looking to get their first win on the board against another team looking to get their first win on the board. Sydney hosting the Breakers.
Sydney, they got game 1 out of the way. I think Gorge would have been into them this week. They would have had a big week of training. And I think they'll just be a bit more together, and I don't think they'll miss as many shots as they did last week.
Yeah, I'm taking Sydney as well. Brisbane, their first home game of the season at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, hosting the Tasmania Jack Jumpers.
Great game. Obviously, Brisbane, a place I loved playing as a home person. I really love that fan base, but got some injuries, got some things to work out, and I'm going to tip Tassie to just keep being the road dogs they are at the moment and go on the road and get a win.
Yeah, I love that fan base, but I'm not going to pick them. But I'm going to go the Brisbane Bullets. Sort of have a good record against the Jackies up in Brizzy, so I'm going to tip the Bullets to get that one. And we finish on Sunday, of course, with our guests tonight in action for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, Nathan Sobey and the Phoenix hosting New Orleans Pelicans. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with this one.
Back to New Orleans. As I said, they won't want to lose these games to an NBL team or to anyone outside of the NBA, and they don't have time to waste with these games. These aren't just games we come and throw a bit at. They're games we come and use to get better and get ready for an NBA season starting in a couple of weeks. So I think they'll be too strong for both Melbourne teams.
Yeah, I'll go New Orleans as well in that one. But that's all we have time for on episode 3 of Cut to the Chase. Of course, we have some exciting guests coming up. As I mentioned, we will have Trez on at some stage. We've got a big episode planned, of course, on the back of something you mentioned, Jase, with the Sapphires winning. An episode planned in the coming weeks, recapping the success of the Australian national teams on the international stage. So look out for that one as well. But we look forward to seeing you next week on Cut to the Chase.